Most of the shaders look okay by themselves, but they're not allowing us to be creative when we are using only one of them. To create a nice looking material, we usually combine few of the shaders together. Let's take a look at the diffuse and glossy shader once again. On their own, they are pretty simple, but if you want to achieve more interesting material, you can combine them together. And for this, we will use the Mix Shader node. Press Shift-A, Shader, and Mix Shader. Now we can play with some options. Let's say we want to create a plastic material. We should leave our glossy color white, because all the materials that are non-metals, in other words, dielectrics, has white reflection color. Colored reflections are reserved for metal materials. Now we can set a color to our diffuse shader, and we have an interesting effect of plastic-like material. The factor in the Mix Shader node allows you to change which material is used more in the mixing. 0 value means that the shader plugged to the first socket will have 100% influence in the output, and 1 means that the lower one will be the only one visible. For a mixing factor, a node called layer weight is used very often. It consists of two different outputs, Fresnel, which I mentioned before, and phasing. Fresnel option is dependent on the angle between the surface normal and the viewing direction. Phasing allows us to blend from the first to the second shader depending on the view angle, so increasing the value more and more makes the lower shader be visible first at the extreme angles and then more towards the camera. We can achieve a pretty cool result with this node. Another example will be a nice gold metal with some kind of glossy coat. So let's add the first glossy shader. I will change the roughness to 0.4 and the color to yellow gold. Because we are creating a metal material, so I can change the color. In the second node, I will set the roughness of the glossy here to 0.1 and the color to almost white. Now I'm playing with the mix value, and this way we created way more interesting shader. The second method of mixing materials is adding them together. Let's look at the example with two glossy shaders. Let's leave both glossy shaders with white color and set the roughness value to something very low. Perfectly white surface already reflects all the light rays, so adding them together is just physically inaccurate. The light leaving a surface can be any brighter than one which fell upon it originally. That's why adding shaders together is used very rarely, mostly for emission or volume shaders, or to create a simple ceramic material by adding diffuse and glossy shader. So let's try not to break the laws of physics and use mix shader for most of our layered materials. Alright, now when we know how to mix our materials, we'll take a look into refraction and glass shaders.